It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday. At Harkipori in Hyderabad, by the banks of the river Ganga, scores of devotees have lined up. A few meters away, three of India's biggest names in wrestling, Vinesh Phogat, Sakshi Malik, and Bajrang Punia, are huddled on their haunches. Many of them are in tears. They are here contemplating one of the most difficult decisions they've ever had to make. They've decided to throw their medals into the Ganga. But why did it come to this? This is Express Sports Podcast. This is me, Amit Kamath, and joining me is Mihir Vasavada, who will be giving you a little bit of a background about why it got so bad.
Where do we even start, Amit? Because every week when we sit down to discuss कि podcast हम क्या topic पे करेंगे, for the last 6 weeks, I guess, wrestling has always been a lurking topic, and it's been a couple of weeks since we have spoken about this, but the tension hasn't reduced at all. Like, even though it wasn't discussed as much. Many people thought that it will end up like one of those many protests that continue to take place at Jantar Mantar, which no one really cares about. It was slightly heading in that direction. But what happened last weekend, late Saturday night and the whole of Sunday, basically led to the situation that we find ourselves in at this moment.
It was an escalation, essentially.
Proper escalation. What happened, if we were to use the phrase, आप chronology अगर जो समझना चाहते हैं, तो उसमें हुआ यूं कि late Saturday evening, one of the three protesters, Sakshi Malik and her husband Satyavart Kadian, they were invited to a meeting with a high-ranking union minister. The purpose of that meeting was to convince the wrestlers to not go ahead with the rally to the new parliament, which was to be inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi the following day on Sunday. As a desperate attempt to get the government's attention and also to seek Brijbhushan Sharan Singh's arrest, the wrestlers had planned a huge protest march from Jantar Mantar to the new parliament building. They had invited Khap panchayats, farm leaders, basically whoever was willing to join them to be a part of that protest march, and the government did not want this to happen. So late Saturday evening, a meeting was called. The government did make an offer, which apparently the wrestlers were not keen to accept. The government did say that they will take action against Brijbhushan Sharan Singh if the police files the charge sheet, when the police files the charge sheet, and if there is anything incriminating in that. And the wrestlers, one of the 7 demands that they had in that meeting, they stuck to their stand. And they did not decide to go to kind of backtrack and, cancel their protest.
Right. So that, Mihir, led us to one of the most distressing scenes we've seen in Indian sports so far. We had the sight of 3 of our biggest athletes, 3 of our biggest wrestlers. Between them, the 3 of them have won 20 medals. Vinesh is a 2-time World Championship bronze medalist. She's won 3 Commonwealth golds, which is unprecedented in itself. She has a gold and a bronze medal at the Asian Games. Sakshi Malik is a Rio Olympics bronze medalist, the only woman wrestler so far to have won a medal for India in wrestling. She is a Commonwealth Games silver and a bronze medalist. Bajrang Punia is a Tokyo Olympics bronze medalist. I think he's won 4 medals at the World Championships, including a silver, 3 bronzes. He's won an Asian Games gold medal. He's won 2 Commonwealth Games golds and 1 silver medal. So
we aren't even counting the numerous number of medals these wrestlers have won in tournaments like the Asian Championship, the Commonwealth Championship, the International Wrestling Federation's ranking tournaments that take place. We haven't really included any of these. The World Cups, ये हमने एक भी count नहीं किया.
Absolutely. So now there are wrestlers of this caliber who are trying to march to the new parliament building. At some point, Delhi police tells them that they can't cross into a certain area which is barricaded, because obviously it's a high profile event. a lot of people with Z securities, Z plus securities are congregated in one area. So you can't have a march of 700, 800 odd people coming there.
That's what Delhi police claims.
So that led to a scuffle between the wrestlers. I don't know if it's even fair to call it a scuffle, because
Yeah.
the scenes we are seeing is where three of these wrestlers have decided to sit on the floor when they were told not to go ahead. They've held on to a giant flag with them, and they were forcibly evicted from that area, lifted off the floor, dragged by, in some cases, as many as 5 or 6 policemen, put into a van, and then taken away. If that's not bad enough, we also saw attempts by certain people on social media to try and give their photographs different scene by altering them, morphing them.
Terrible.
Absolutely. So we have seen all of that. This, I think, was the point which pushed these athletes into Haridwar, into throwing their medals.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the detention that you mentioned, Amit, they were detained for the entire day. They were released only late in the night on Sunday. And the moment they were released, there were FIRs filed against all of them, which means that they were facing the risk of being officially arrested. And then the Delhi police also came out and said that Jantar Mantar was out of bounds for these wrestlers. So they essentially, when they left Jantar Mantar to march towards the parliament, Delhi police पीछे से आके सारा protest site उन्होंने clear कर दिया, and then they said that the wrestlers will not be allowed to return here. So one of the
To add insult to injury, basically.
to add insult to injury, to actually make it is an official protest site of the country. Jantar Mantar, if you go, I mean, I was there in Delhi recently, and you could see that in that one lane, which is I think around 400, 500 meters, you'll have like multiple protests going on at one point. So it is the protest capital, so to say, as well of the capital city. And to make that out of bounds for wrestlers who were sitting largely peacefully over there.
And they've spent almost a month, over a month. In
Yeah,
fact,
35, 36 days when
in
this
fact,
happened.
before that, they were there in January.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was then the final straw. And the statement that the wrestlers put out on their respective Twitter handles, social media handles on Tuesday, on that they did mention that, it felt very insulting to them that the person they accused of sexual harassment was inside the parliament building flashing a victory sign in his all white clothing. These are the descriptions that they have used. And the people who have accused, who have been the victims, quote unquote, of whatever Brij Bhushan has been accused of doing, they are being detained and an FIR has been filed against them. And the wrestlers said that the entire Monday, a lot of them spent hiding in the fields, and then they decided कि और कोई option नहीं थे उनके
Yeah,
पास.
enough was enough. right?
Enough was enough. So the only option they said they were left with was to kind of, return their medals. But then the question was, whom do they return it to? They first considered President Draupadi Murmu, and the wrestlers in their statement, they said that the president was just 2 kilometers away from where they were protesting, and she saw everything that was happening but did not speak a word about it. So clearly they said that it didn't matter. So that option was ruled out. And then the second option they considered was the Prime Minister himself. कि उन्हें वापस कर देंगे medals. Then they claimed that the Prime Minister had not spoken up against whatever was happening. So they felt it wasn't the right thing to do. And they chose Ganga, River Ganga, because they said it was the symbol of purity, and the medals too were a symbol of their purity, the hard work, everything that goes behind that. But I mean, these are the incident, the chronology of the incident that the wrestlers have described. Amit, yaar, I mean, it didn't happen that day. They were convinced against doing it by cup leaders. But the mere thought of an athlete, an Olympian, an Olympic medal winner, India has only 35, I think, Olympic medals.
Yeah.
Right? For them to even consider this option of throwing away their medals, it must take a lot to even think about it. I had been in touch with plenty of athletes, Indian athletes who have won medals, and they were not able to kind of express their shock because they knew kind of the kind of effort that goes behind winning a medal, the years of preparation. Just it's shattering to kind of even put someone in their shoes and think about.
Absolutely, Mir. Just to contextualize how much winning an Olympic medal means to these guys, for a lot of these guys, winning an Olympic medal is the only thing. It's not one of the things, it's the only thing. They've spent their entirety of their careers, their entirety of their lives, single handedly chasing this one little thing. It weighs, I think, barely 500
Yeah,
grams.
yeah.
But I think it was Abhinav Bindra, India's individual Olympic gold medalist, who mentioned that it probably weighs less than a kg, but it is enough to lift the whole sense
Morale of the
of
country.
purpose
Yeah.
of the entire country of 1.3, 1.4 billion. So for wrestlers to even consider immersing their medals into the river after going through everything that they have, it's massive. In fact,
All
Mihir,
weathers. In January when they came, it was bitter cold
yeah,
in Delhi. When they returned in April, I mean, it was pleasant, but the last couple of weeks it was terribly hot. And the last week there were thunderstorms. I mean, they've literally battled the elements of nature, and they've battled the elements of the
but Mihir,
political class as well.
struggle is something that comes naturally to wrestlers, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
it
were
does.
there at Tokyo and you've seen
I mean,
Bajrang.
we've both seen, right? I mean, just the kind of effort that goes behind winning the medal too. I mean, we talk about the years of preparation, but on that particular day too, I mean, Bajrang, it was a massive act of, it was heroics. I mean, he was injured,
Yeah,
his knee was trapped, and he went into the medal bout. I mean, we both were not present physically in the arena because when Bajrang's bronze medal bout was going on, Neeraj Chopra's gold medal round was also on
absolutely.
simultaneously. So
Yeah,
we weren't there, but we all saw the highlights, the television coverage of that bout.
yeah.
And Bajrang basically risked his
Career.
career, his even the kind of injury he was facing. It could have been a long term thing. His physio had clearly told him that look, if you remove the strapping, it could lead to something serious in your knee, long term effects, etc., etc. And he said कि यार मतलब medal जीतने का ये एक chance है.
Hmm.
I don't care. And he just removed his trappings and he went onto the mat and won that medal. So that's the kind of risk and the courage the wrestlers end up showing.
And Mir, I think we usually end up going to the words of Abhinav Bindra to contextualize things in Indian sport. After the scenes that we saw on Sunday, where we saw the wrestlers being lifted, hoisted off the floor, carted off into vans, Bindra put out a very telling tweet. His words were like, last night was sleepless, haunted by the horrifying images of our fellow wrestlers protesting. I mean, so he is somebody who's very articulate anyway. But for him to use these specific words, it tells a lot about what not just these wrestlers, but other athletes who've not spoken out yet for one reason or another are probably feeling internally.
Yeah.
And Abhinav Indra is not the only one. Somebody like an Anil Kumble, who's been an Indian legend, obviously he's never had to do all of this for just one medal. For an cricketer, the goalposts are slightly different, the things you chase are slightly different. But even he was moved enough to tweet, dismayed to hear about what transpired on the 28th of May with our wrestlers being manhandled. Anything can be resolved through proper dialogue, hoping for a resolution at the earliest. I think at that point when he tweeted, Anil was actually in the studios doing commentary for the IPL, or he would just have been done with that. For him to like move focus, I think a lot of times when we talk about cricketers not responding, people usually say that obviously the cricketers are busy with their own things, they're chasing this tournament, this medal, this thing, which is why they're not focusing, they don't know. But just to put out a humanitarian tweet for somebody who is your brethren, that doesn't take a lot, right?
Yeah, and two things here. I mean, May 28th and May 30th. I mean, we've spoken for ages about the official apathy and the kind of struggles our athletes have to go through. But I think these two dates will for a long time remain the dark days for Indian sport. And you're very right. I mean, this was something on a very humanitarian grounds. I mean, I understand why some of the athletes would be hesitant to come out and say something regarding a sexual harassment allegation because it's still in an investigation stage and nothing is proven. They have that defense. But यहाँ पर तो आप देख रहे हो कि मैन हैंडलिंग हो रही है. I mean, forget that these are wrestlers and sports persons. Just on a basic, at a very human level, it wasn't the right thing. Whatever defense the Delhi police has, whatever defense the political class and their supporters have, it was the wrong thing to have happened. And it's happened again and again on the streets of Delhi. And it also woke up two international bodies.
Yeah.
The United World Wrestling, which is the parent body of the entire the World Wrestling Affairs, and the International Olympic Committee. And their statements, which you can find on the IndianExpress.com, their statements were damning. Also, at the same time, they hinted at two things. The United World Wrestling has said that, of course, they have condemned the action on May 28th. They have threatened to suspend India from international wrestling if the elections to elect the new WFI president, the new Wrestling Federation of India president, are not held in a timely manner. Now, the timely manner which the UWW defines is the 45 days from the time an ad hoc body was formed to run the wrestling affairs in the country. अब वो 45 days के almost 28 days तो pass हो गए. By the time this episode comes out, I think it will be around 10 or little more than 10 days remaining to that 45 days deadline. So we are very close to a default in that sense and staring at international wrestling suspension. And quickly before I pass on to you, Amit, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, their statement also has been very damning. They've used very strong language, which isn't a usual. I mean, usually when we get emails from IOC,
It's very balanced.
it's balanced or it's outright bland.
Right. They don't want to take positions. I mean,
Yeah.
they could probably walk on the border of North Korea and South Korea and still say that no, both sides are equal for
हाँ,
us.
मतलब utopian world है for them.
Yeah.
And for them to say that, whatever happened over the weekend, and they're talking about the weekend of May 27 and 28, was very disturbing. They've called for criminal investigation into the allegations of sexual harassment. They've of course said that the law of the land should be followed, but they've also at the same time asked that the entire process be handled in a speedy manner. And most importantly, from an overall point of view, they've kind of asked the Indian Olympic Association to wake up and protect the athletes, which is a very important thing for them to say. Because the Indian Olympic Association has so far done absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And to think that the Indian Olympic Association is now being headed by athletes, it's
A legendary athlete herself.
and not just PT Usha. I mean, you look at the Executive Council of the Indian Olympic Association, we have never had so many sports persons in it. So for them to not act or not even say something, एक आप छोटा सा statement दे दो which would be comforting to the wrestlers, that also hasn't happened. So it's very distressing, but the IOC has now urged them to speak up. Whether they do, we'll see in a couple of days, I guess.
And just to get back to the protest itself, the time yesterday on Tuesday basically where the wrestlers were basically talked off the ledge and why it happened. In fact, if you read our colleague Nihal Koshi's report, he's mentioned how a prominent BJP union minister from Western UP was the one who made a phone call and told them that, give us some more time. We will try and, get a consensus. We'll try and get something sorted. That is one of the reasons that seem to have done the trick. Besides that, Mihir, what is the next move for the wrestlers? They've obviously been talked out of, the medals. There were reports yesterday that while they were sitting there for 2 hours, one of the most prominent farm leaders of BKU, I believe,
Yeah,
He
ticket.
came, he took away their medals,
Yeah,
basically in an effort to stop them from throwing them away. Bharatiya Kisan Union leader Naresh Tikait, who heads the Balyan Cup, he was the one who turned up there, albeit 2 hours late, but then he's come there, he's taken away the medals, he's prevented them from at least immersing them into the Ganga. And the phone call from the Western UP leader, which I have to tell you that it is a very rare thing for the BJP now, because we've seen what has happened when the parliament building was being inaugurated. We saw women and child development minister Smriti Irani hiding replies to her Twitter handle. We've seen Meenakshi Lekhi yesterday, who's also a prominent
running
BJP,
away.
running away from
Yeah.
questions about wrestlers. So for the BJP, I mean, I know a lot of people will say that the wrestlers have been backed into a corner, but maybe at some stage the BJP also itself has itself into another corner on two separate sides of the room, and nobody wants to come in the middle and have a discussion. Maybe.
Yeah, true. In middle of all this, you have Brijbhushan Sharan Singh, who has steadfastly denied every allegation that's been hurled at him. He was present, as we discussed earlier in the episode, at the inauguration of the parliament. He was there in very crisp white kurta pajamas. And at the same time, he is also planning a massive rally of sorts in Ayodhya. It is in the first week of June, I think on June 5, where all the sadhus, all the seers in Ayodhya, they are going to gather and urge the government to make changes to the POXO law. Yeah, POXO law is basically the prevention of sexual harassment involving minors. So they are claiming that it is right now unfair, it is being misused, and they want to change the entire law. So whether they succeed in that or how that goes is something that will be interesting to see. But yeah, Brijbhushan is continuing his political commitments as normal. He's of course sidelined from the wrestling thing at the moment, and I think yeah, that's about it. That we had to discuss in today's episode. I think we've covered most of the topics, or all of the topics, I guess. Yeah, I mean, look, we were planning to talk about the World Test Championship final this week. The match starts on June 7th. But of course, this issue took precedence, and we will be talking about World Test Championship. So, but that will be in our sister episode, the Express Delivery episode, which hopefully will come out in middle of the coming week. So do watch out for that, and we will be back with a fresh episode of Game Time next Saturday. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Hi everyone, a quick update. After we finished recording this episode, Brijbhushan Sharan Singh announced that the rally he was supposed to hold in Ayodhya on June 5, which we mentioned in this episode, has been postponed. According to reports, he did not get permission from the authorities to carry out this rally. Once again, thanks for listening to Game Time.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Abhishek Kumar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.